We're going to call this meeting of the council work session August 7th for the order. I want to welcome everybody who's attending in person, those who are online with us today. When we have work sessions, this is the council to receive information and also discuss issues that are affecting the city. We do not vote in work session, nor do we take any of these items up at a regular meeting at 7 o'clock. Wanted to let you know that Mike McPhee, one of our council members, has an excused absence and will not be here. So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the employee new hire recognition, police department. Chief Price, there she is.
Thank you very much for having us, Mayor, City Council, staff. I come today to introduce you to some folks. Some of them may look familiar and some of them are new, but one thing that we can tell you is we started a part-time officer program. The part-time officer program helps us fill in our staffing at the convenience of folks who want to be police officers. And in that vein, you may recognize Eric Hayes, who's come to rejoin us. He was a Beaufort City police officer who now works as the director of bridges and is one of our new part-time officers. We are so glad to have him back. It actually had a row of excitement in the police department when his application came through. Everybody was so excited, wanting to know, well, when can we hire him? When can we hire him? So we are very glad to have him back, and it's not just I'm glad to have him back, but the staff is glad to have him. And joining us from Massachusetts is Chris Forkin. And Chris Forkin, after a 32-year-long career, retired and has moved down here to the Low Country and decided he had more to offer us in law enforcement. So he has also joined us as a part-time police officer. And trust me when I tell you, he brings a vast knowledge and experience to our police department. SWAT commandery, I mean, he's done it all in his time and tenure, and we are very, very glad to have him. Look forward to your tenure and your knowledge. And this guy you may recognize. This guy is Dan Thompson. He is a new part-time officer, but he has been a reserve for a very, very long time. And when he found out about our part-time officers, he decided to join us in that. And so Dan Thompson has been with our department for 24 years. And he has been with Port Royal for 1 year before that, making his career in law enforcement as a reserve officer, donating and volunteering tens of thousands of hours of his own time, while also having a family that's beautiful and serving as an executive with Hargrave Communications. So this is Dan Thompson. And along those veins, we couldn't let a 25-year history pass without mounting his reserve badge, and it's the real one, Dan, on a plaque for you to celebrate your 25 years of service to the Low Country and volunteering in law enforcement. That's it for the police department. Thank you very much for celebrating this with us as far as our new hires and celebrating.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. A, we have Parks and Trees Advisory Commission. Nate Farrell.
Mayor, Council. What we're bringing before you today is some changes that have been requested through the Parks and Tree Advisory Commission about their duties. We'll see under the duties and responsibilities, there's been a few changes. But before we get started, I would like to introduce Ms. Barb Ferrier. She is the head of the Parks and Tree Advisory Commission, the chair. And I will give her a chance to introduce herself to tell you a little bit about what she has brought here.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. There's been a number of changes take place in the last few months at the Parks and Tree Advisory Commission. We lost 3 members and we welcomed 2 new members, one being Isaiah Martinez, the second being Mr. Joe McDermott. So we voted on some changes, but what I'd like to do is discuss these new changes, possible changes that have been presented with the new members before we come back to you with recommendations. So I'd like a delay in, presenting those to you.
Come at the next work session or something.
Yeah, sure.
You can do it by then or
And that will be,
next month, September 10th.
Well, yeah, the next one is September 10th. That might be a little soon.
It won't be in until the end of September.
Yeah.
So
So
we do August.
October, depending on the timing, October. Will that give you enough time to spare
I
your
think
test?
so. I just want to get together with them, just, present the changes that we have come up with and, get their input. Okay,
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you coming.
you're welcome.
While you're here, can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Real quick, so on page 5, it said that there's not and has never been a Beaufort urban forestry plan. Is that different, and how is it different from the comprehensive tree inventory that was done in 2000?
It is different. So I did have Adam Wellens, he was supposed to be, he's our park supervisor, he was gonna come, he's been doing a lot of research into that. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency and wasn't able to come. But it's not the exact same, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it with the topography and looking into it, but he's looking at possible grants that are out there from the South Carolina Forestry Department and other things that I could probably bring a better descriptive information on that when we come the next time.
Yeah, my understanding is that has to be done by a professional, and that's why Adam's looking for grants. And the tree inventory has certainly changed since 2001. So it needs to be redone, that needs to be addressed.
We're talking about that next.
No, you said that was, what year?
2001.
We actually counted the trees.
Yeah, it's on the city website. If you go to the special plans studies, and then it's in there.
So I just learned this, I'm new on the board, but, I'll just make it real brief, I know y'all have other issues. I called a tree foundation in another state, they have a nice impressive document, they have their own master plan, urban forestry master plan, I learned a whole lot reading theirs. But long story short, they told me on the phone, the nice lady, that, because I wasn't sure if it was the same thing, tree inventory versus the tree canopy percentage, so she told me the tree inventory doesn't necessarily lead to the tree canopy percentage, but if you do a tree canopy percentage, you would do a tree inventory. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, so that's what I was told, I don't know, yeah, it's just a picture thought.
Good information. Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is 2024 state transportation sales tax referendum. Amen.
Yeah, Mayor Council, at the last work session we had prior to going on right for summer hiatus, we had a brief discussion on the transportation sales tax referendum. Some discussion that was desired by some council members, especially with regard to the $10 million that's going to be allocated to the city of Beaufort as a result of this referendum should it pass. We had some discussion when there was a request that the discussion be continued at a future work session, and that what we did, if possible, we have the county represented. And I'm pleased to say tonight we have Jared Freeling, Assistant County Administrator for Engineering and Infrastructure, okay. And we also have Councilwoman Alice Howard, who represents a significant portion of the city of Beaufort as well. So I'd like to point if they are here as a resource. Jared has a presentation that he has prepared. And if you would like, he can take you through that, and then you can discuss in whatever way pleases you most to inform you about the topic.
Appreciate it. Jared, what was yours?
I'm gonna ask Ms. Howard to sit in the hot seat with me. Thank you, y'all. I appreciate you guys just taking it up, just for discussion, and I hope that the other municipalities do the same. Just because planning on what we're want to do, if successful in November, starts now, not in November. So thank you for this. I don't have a, just let me know. Okay, next slide. I'm just gonna give a quick recap. I'm not gonna get into all the details. Hopefully you guys are fully aware, but just to start off, first off, this isn't the first transportation sales tax. And if you've heard me talk before, I've talked in detail about these. So these, we've had 3 other transportation sales taxes in Beaufort County. And what's being proposed would be the 4th transportation sales tax. So all that to say, there's a history. This is not the first time. And if you look through the different projects that have been done in those different sales tax referendums, a lot has been done over the last 26 years through roads. So this is what's included in the future program. So 10 years, 950 million. The first there on the left are the 3 projects from 2018. So since 2018, we've all experienced worldwide experienced COVID pandemic. And so out of that came a lot of hyperinflation and price escalations. So our first goal was to make sure those previous projects are made whole. We don't want to skimp on the scope. That was what we promised in 2018 when we want to make sure those are fully funded and constructed. Then moving down, we have green belts. So we have a green space sales tax. It expires at the end of this November or December. This is a close cousin to green space. And so the continuation, this is a priority, one of our natural characteristics in the community. And that was presented as a priority. Below that's mass transit. So this is everything from our bus system to aviation, as well as ferry. We're the only county in the state that has a ferry program. And so those are the 3 things that would be made up inside of mass transit. The Triangle Project, if you haven't heard of that yet, so this is 3 roads in Okeechobee, basically 278, 170, and Argent Boulevard form a triangle. Behind the 278 bridge going to Hilton Head, this is the highest regional priority in the LATS study area. So Low Country Area Transit, our MPO that we're part of in Beaufort. Below that is Rebo Road. That one obviously is most important here. On Rebo Road, we had some planning exercises and charrettes over the last year. A lot of public input, and our goal with that is to come back, and we've taken the input, we've updated the plan, and to bring that back in a public forum even before November to say, hey, those are things that we heard. Obviously, the lane widths are the numbers of lanes and a couple different features that to highlight and to put back out there as proposal. So whatever Rebo Road ends up being, we know that there will be a cost associated with that. So we don't have to have that fully defined today, but we need to make sure that there's a provision for funding for that. And then back down south is 46 improvements. So this is going out of SC 46 from 170 at a traffic circle to going towards Jasper County. The Triangle and 46 Jasper County has a similar sales tax that they're looking forward in November as well. And those projects marry up with Jasper County's projects that they have. On the right is the municipal projects. From the first version, it was all collected together. The north of the Broad was 30 million. That's been split up. So 10, 10, 10. And then the town of Bluffton and Hilton Head. And then hopefully you guys can talk about what's important to y'all inside the 10 million, but this is the other area I really think between Rebo Road and then these next grouping of projects where there's opportunity for the city of Beaufort to really have some other opportunities within the program as it's set out here. So safety and traffic flow. Anything really has a safety component. Any type of road improvement has a safety improvement, but these are probably going to be more like intersections or turn lanes or different features. Dirt road paving, this is more in the rural areas, resurfacing and preservation. The intent here, all these programs, they're not defined fully yet, and we're going to spend some time over the next couple months and beyond to define these and to give better information to y'all of what the county's envision with this. But these would be yearly call for projects where municipalities, county presents those, and then we filter them through an index. We create some priority index that we all agree on is appropriate. And they're filtered through the resurfacing. The goal is to look at all the roads, not just county roads, but DOT roads, city roads. We want to not have potholes in Beaufort County. So whatever road that is, we don't care. We just don't want potholes. Pathway projects. So this one got beat up a bit and dropped down just because we started out at 15 years and reduced down to 10 years. And so it's at 20 million, and then resiliency and emergency. So these are areas where we have habitual flooding or emergency roads getting in and out of the county. Next slide.
Can we go back there one second? Yeah, specifically, what's planned for Argent Boulevard?
Argent Boulevard, so all three of those roads, there's some capacity needs. So that would be looked at, as well as safety enhancements. So
Yeah, and the other question is, there's been a lot of pushback. We got a Rebar Road and the circles.
sure.
Are there more strats planned to get more feedback, or how are you gonna proceed on that?
Yeah, I think our goal is to present an updated plan based off the charrettes and the feedback we've heard. And then we can go from there, whether we need to continue with additional plans. This is still high level, so we still have to, even though it's shown, we still has to be designed, and there's public participation in that. So that's where we stand currently.
We had an in-depth meeting with the hospital, and a lot of pushback about roundabouts, and I think we heard them loud and clear, so.
And the two lane is pretty much gone. Okay, we need to make sure it's out there to the public, because there's a lot of mistrust on this in the public. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I never vote for the tax because what we're doing to revote road. He's going to let them know and make it loud and clear. Traffic circles are kind of a mixed bag. Some people like them, some don't. Hospital, no. Personally, I don't care for them. But I have heard people that do, but you need to make it loud and clear that Remote Road is not going to be two lane.
Yeah, and our goal is to bring that back to a forum where all three of us, the county, town, and city, are engaged together. And so then it's not just the county informing folks, it's all of us together.
They're gonna include sidewalk improvements and undergrounding overhead power line.
Yes, yes, so that'll be what we bring back. We heard y'all are hitting on the right comments. So the 3-lane section, the roundabouts, those were negatively. The positives were the undergrounding, the sidewalks. So those are the features that we're going to raise, and the other ones minimize.
And the safety I guess for my part, a safety issue would be the sidewalks right on the road.
Yeah, so
that's a very dangerous thing.
So this gets to the final design part. The sidewalks get into right away.
Yeah.
And that was not to get down into the rabbit trail on the where we got to with the 3 lanes, but that was trying to thread the needle on right away / capacity. So there's opportunities for enhancements to the sidewalks, but that'll be further detailed as we get into design too, is how much right of way impacts we have and how much is tolerable. And we'll work through that further.
On one side, it'd be very tough to put a sidewalk.
It is. Absolutely.
Now, on the mass transit, you're talking about ferries. Is this a Busky ferry? Is this a
so
countywide ferry that's going?
Yeah, so that's not fully defined yet. I think that what we would need to define a county-wide ferry would be some type of plan and due diligence. So that would be initial. The Fusky ferry is what's there present. So there's need there now for that, but then long-term building out what could be a county-wide ferry that would be looked at.
And this is just for capital type stuff. It's not for operational or anything like that.
So on mass transit, the goal is to first help them on the operational. So what they do is they go around yearly asking for funds to support their operation. So they don't have enough funding horizon to plan future investment. So first, our goal is to help them with that operational component, which they get a match with the federal government. And then really help them on some of their capital plans. So they need a bus storage maintenance facility, they need some parking ride. They would like to have a bus depot. And so those would be the bigger capital projects that they have identified, but haven't really moved forward yet.
We're working with Blats and, Breeze and Palmetto Breeze.
Yeah, Palmetto Breeze specifically on their needs on mass transit, yes.
Jerry, the ferry issue, is that simply just a passenger ferry or is there any thought toward a vehicle ferry?
There's been discussions of all the above. And a lot of it has to do with land.
Right.
So the county, we have a private contract that operates the ferry. And I think that the county's position would be to own the locations and have an operator. The restricted part in whatever we determine, whether that's land or whether that's passenger or vehicles, has to do really land. That's a big issue. So, next slide. And I won't go through these in great detail. We had a public facilities meeting, a council meeting. I just wanted to point the highlights out on this. So this was the 2018 sales tax. Those are the 3 projects. We have all this information on our BeaufortCountyPenny.com website. But the next slide is just to show you the status of those. So these are all the Ladies Island projects, where they sit, how much was project cost estimated, the status, where we are. A lot of them, we get a lot of pushback about things that have been constructed. The implementation, we get to 30% and 60%. We've had 2 public meetings, and then we get into right of way, and that's where we have a ton of right of way properties that we have to acquire to make these enhancements, and that's where a lot of these are at the current moment. And then once they come out of right of way, we can put them into construction. So and then at the end, the planned construction dates. So that's Ladies Island. Next slide. This is the pathways. So we have the pathways. There was 24 pathways. We didn't have enough funding initially, so we prioritized some of them. So some of them are a little bit further along than others. And then the next slide, more pathways. And again, I'm not going into details on each and every one, but this information is on the county website. There's a host of other information there and resources that people can look into about the existing sales tax and where the different projects are. And then lastly, won't spend a lot of time here, but this is 278 schedule. We just received municipal consent and submit to Federal Highway for a conclusion of the environmental assessment process. And then we'll finish the design. We have approximately 2.5 years of design, and then 2.5 and 3 years of construction. So really the way we sit today, by the end of 2030 is the expected timeline for that bridge to be constructed. And lastly, just a couple of quick slides. Excuse me, this is the funding. So this is a quarterly report that we have to send to the state on the bridge. You can see that the cost estimate there is basically $490 million. And if you look into the different columns, local funds, other funds, and state TIP funds, that adds up, and we have $190 million shortfall. So part of the sales tax is $90 million towards 278 to shore up that shortfall. And then the other funds, they're petitioning additional funds to be contributed by the state and the state infrastructure bank. This is the full expenditures on the program itself. And so the revenues are at the top. And again, I know it's a small screen and not getting into all of it. And then the expenditures at the bottom based off the different contracts, different design firms, and different expenditures that we had and contractors there at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it at the bottom. All in all, at the bottom, I don't see it. It's down on the screen a little bit. The total expenditure to date is $30 million out of the $120 million. And a lot of that is we have some small roads and small pathways that have been constructed. But a large chunk of that is the Ladies Island and 278. Those are the major dollars in the program, which we obviously know aren't at construction yet. And I've got three 3 or 4 quick slides. Just had a presentation at LATS, our regional planner transportation planning group. And they're working on a safety action plan, not just for Beaufort County, but for the 4 counties that make up LCOG, Beaufort, Jasper, Hampton, and Colleton. And the safety action plan identifies areas of incidents and plans and measures to improve that. And so the highlight here is, as we are talking through sales tax over the last year, we've talked about roads and quality of life. But what this slide screams is not the quality of life that matters and what the sales tax is presenting. It's the number of lives saved is what we're really after. So you can see in the last 6 years, since 2017, there's been 43,000 crashes in the Floral County area, totaling over 400 fatalities. So if you let that sink in, how many lives is an acceptable number that we lose in a calendar year? I think the number is 0, and hopefully you agree with that. So if we identify this as the area that needs, we're not investing funds for quality, even though that has a tertiary benefit, we're really protecting lives by investing in our infrastructure. And that's the plan through sales tax. And next slide, just going down a level, 450 crashes in pedestrian incidents alone, and over 70 fatalities just out of that 400 number we just talked about. Next slide. And then just to put an exclamation on that, so South Carolina, out of all 50 states, as far as pedestrians, is ranked number 2 in the nation as worst of pedestrian fatalities in the nation. Out of that, all 4 of our low country counties are in the top 10 of South Carolina. So we're in the bottom percentile of the second to worst state in the nation in pedestrian fatalities. That needs to be fixed. And hopefully that's what, we're working with the consultant that's preparing this and overlaying the proposed sales tax projects with where a lot of the incidents, you can see the graph there on the right that has the highlighted areas. And that's the 278, the Triangle Project, the Repo Road. You can see these areas when you zoom in on the map to the right there. And I believe that's the last thing out of that slideshow. The aging population for us, 39% over the age of 55. So that's not a shock, but older drivers have their own needs, and safety is an issue, definitely for those older drivers. And then top right, it's hard to see, but 61% of fatalities, serious injuries are in the rural areas. So the percentage is really high on our rural roads. So it's not just safety in our urban areas, but safety in our rural areas that we hope to target through sales tax. And lastly, last slide is again, BeaufortCountyPenny.com. Oh, this is just the implementation. You can see 278 and different areas with those pins. Last slide. 278, BeaufortCountyPenny.com right there at the bottom, where you can find the information I kind of just briefed on and other resources there on the county website.
Yeah, but this is a basic question. So we market this as a penny sales tax, right? It's really 1%, right?
It's 1%, that's right. So if you spend more than $1, it's multiple pennies.
Personal, but I think it's kind of misleading.
Yeah, so state sales tax is 6%, and local counties can have up to 3 additional pennies. So it can be anywhere from 6 to 9 cents. So it's referenced statewide as penny tax, but you're right, it's a 1% of every retail dollar spent.
If you spend $100, it's not a penny.
That's right.
And when folks say, when you say this is a penny sales tax, I'll be honest, in my mind initially, even I thought it was, I spent $10, I'm gonna pay a penny. Now, that may seem naive, but it's just the reality.
You know, green space expires, when this would become effective. So.
But green space is another penny sales tax, and currently green space, so we're at 7% in Beaufort County.
I get all that, but
But I understand your comment.
Any comments from the public? I'll give you your name and address. Record.
Paul Trask, 610 Bladen Street. Could we go back to the first slide, please? Next one, I'm sorry. There we go. Jared, you mentioned one thing about a bridge. Which bridge were you referring to?
The 278.
278.
Bridge to Hilton Head.
Okay. So a couple of questions here, the Rebo Road improvements, you say will probably go through a redesign with further public input and so forth. Council thus far, city council hadn't had much enthusiasm for the reimagined Rebo Road. Could reimagined Rebo Road include pathway improvements off of Rebo Road to connect? So you've got a separate line item for Depot Road already that's already funded, just hadn't been built. But we are in desperate need of extending the Spanish Moss Trail into downtown.
Yeah.
Could some of that Rebo Road improvement money conceivably be used to extend such pathway under a redesign?
Yeah, and you could, I think that would probably be stretching what's intended. So inside of the ordinance as described at county council, there's a description and it talks about kind of the parameters of Rebo Road. So I don't think that would probably be the best area, but under the pathways funding over there, the 20 million, that would probably be a better.
And that's a countywide pathway.
That's correct.
Which has been diminished from the original.
Yeah, and so originally, I believe it was either 80 or 90 million. And there was not an inclusion for the 24 pathways. There was just that first, out of the 80 million, the existing pathways would be completed. So they, in this last iteration, they actually put a number to that 24 pathways. So if those 24 pathways need less than 30 million, then that funding would slide there to the other pathway projects.
One other question, please. Would the Pigeon Point boat landing, which is a transportation project, would that qualify for funding under the 10 million to the city of Beaufort?
Yeah, so the requirements for the municipal allotments is that basically it has to fit in the parameters of the state law. So as long as it fits a transportation need and it can be couched under that, then that would be a viable project.
Thank you. So my comment to city council is this. For the $10 million, I'm disappointed, number one, that this is not the 15-year program, and I'm not a tax person. But this situation is important because it could have raised $1.6 billion over a little bit longer period, which would have gone a long ways. I'm disappointed with the county's committee, which didn't allocate a sufficient amount to Northern Beaufort County, in my view, and focused, unfortunately, on this Rebo Road business. But here's my opinion. We need to use some of the $10 million. There's no attention being paid to the future Northern Bypass Bridge. So we can not talk about it if we want to, but we're going to go another decade down the road and we're going to have a real serious problem. So my recommendation, number one, with our $10 million, should this be successful, is that we fund a study. There are, I believe, 3 studies already that examine that. Well, we need to pick those up and perhaps do another study. So that would be a priority for the city of Beaufort. Priority number 2 would be the Pigeon Point boat landing. There's your funding right there to take care of Pigeon Point. The next priority, I would say, is the desperate need to get bicycle traffic safely into the downtown area and throughout the downtown area, which would alleviate some of the parking problems that you hear so many complaints about in the downtown area. So those 3 things, please, would be the priorities that I hope council will focus on in examining how to spend the 10 million.
Thank you.
One comment on the additional bridge is, so LATS is the regional planning group. They have identified both studying that additional bridge as well as an additional bridge to Hilton Head in a future study. So they have programmed funding in their coffers for those due diligence studies to take place.
Let's say so. Not only do I want to see funding for an additional bridge or a study for additional bridge, I want to see a task force, a county task force formed to how to try to move it ahead, to find out, location, everything else along with it. I mean, not just a study. I mean, we've had 3 studies. It's going nowhere. I want to see this thing go somewhere. We really need to get this going.
Yeah, we're probably going to defer to Lats as the regional planner
Yes.
to lead that effort. And then all of the entities, the county and the city and others are all part of that, and a task force out of that. We'll support that effort, and, but I think they're the entity, the right entity to look at these models, these long range plans.
Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa Sunderland, Historic Beaufort Foundation. I have an excellent presentation, by the way. I have a question that will determine whether I have a further question. Under the area of resurfacing and preservation, are you including in that downtown Beaufort and historic district of downtown Beaufort?
Yes, so all areas are gonna be included, DOT roads, county roads. But one thing that we're probably county staff is going to give some more insight into especially these programs next month at county council at public facilities. But our goal there is to really look at preserving good roads. So our goal is to take our level of service and keep it from deteriorating. And the best way to do that is really to keep your good roads good. And your bad roads, DOT has a bigger coffer for them to work on roads that need more than just smaller treatments. So $50 million over 10 years seems like a lot, but when you start resurfacing $1 million a mile, it doesn't go very far. So I don't know if that helps explain our goal and intent with that program.
So my comment then is that over the years, DOT has resurfaced and resurfaced and resurfaced to the point that it exceeds the sidewalk level in many areas within the historic district, as well as compromising the drainage, the storm drainage within those neighborhoods. Is this an opportunity to assess that and remove, grade it down and get it to where it is functional and works the way that it was intended to work?
Yeah, I think that can be looked at and coordinated with DOT.
Okay.
They would be the ones that would decide if that extra inches of asphalt over years can be removed and they still have the structural stability for the road. And then how that affects the drainage. I know exactly what you're talking about, how it's reduced the drainage capacity into the inlets.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Farley?
Brian Barley, 2415 Oak Haven Street. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate all the updates on the prior projects. I guess I expected to see more on what currently was planned aside from, we've seen this already at city and county meetings. One thing that I wanted to bounce off of all of you, and it refers to an item that's further on down in the agenda, to change a through truck route to avoid a bridge and so on. That's gonna put an additional amount of heavy truck traffic on Revo because that's the intended route to take. We already have a really serious issue at Ladies Island Drive and Revo Road. This is gonna really compound that tremendously. So I didn't know if that's something that can be put here or to the 10 million or whatever. I didn't, I expected at this meeting to perhaps see some suggestions of what was going to happen. So that would be my suggestion, to really seriously, urgently look at that issue. Because I support the rerouting.
Yeah, on the Revo Road, so like I said, we're gonna bring something back to the public.
But I think it needs to be, to consider that maybe this truck route is gonna be changed, not just what it is now.
Yes, I agree, 100%, and I'm glad you guys are talking about that, and that can be folded into that discussion. I think one of the other things that you'll see and that we heard everybody and bringing it back is that intersection specifically. And the existing plan doesn't give a lot of long-term solutions there, and we're going to increase that in the update.
Anyone else? Please.
Cynthia actually has a comment. She's trying to explain it to me, it'd be better if she said it.
Cynthia, make your way up this way.
She can stand, she can stand. Can I just do it from here?
If you-
Speak loud.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia Jenkins, Historic Beaufort Foundation. I know years ago when we were talking about a third bridge, we talked about that you have to dedicate, or you can dedicate a map, which is the proposed route, so that development does not occur along, is that still how you do it?
Yeah, so that would be working with the local governments, so LATS would lead that due diligence and look at it, and then if there was a preferred alternative, even though it may not be exactly what it looks like, this is our preferred location, then that would be through local jurisdiction about securing the appropriate setbacks, so that it doesn't get built up, so those provisions could take place.
Well, it seems like in my distant memory that Grace Hill Road, the road, that was gonna be the dedicated route to Ladies Island across there. In the old, it was called Buttes, and I think it was from 1974. That's right. And that was never done. The route there was never a map done that officially dedicated that route. And so people bought property, they built houses, probably anticipation of the road, or in some cases. So that's something we need to be doing earlier rather than later. 10 years ago would have been the time to have really thought through that. So one, I would urge you to move forward on that quickly, and two, for Beaufort County to do zoning that protects those areas on Ladies Island, and manages development and growth over there now. Thank you.
And Brazil too.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, me, if you're bringing it back to council.
Sure.
So first, thank you for the presentation, very detailed, very helpful. And I know that the plan is probably to promote the BeaufortCountyPenny.com pretty heavily. I think that's gonna be wise because people definitely need to be educated about this more than what we have been so far. So really, two questions, and then I had two statements, but one statement was in regards to a third crossing. I think we beat that up pretty good. I support the comments that favor making that a priority, because I think that it's sooner rather than later, it's going to be an issue for us. You had mentioned that there was the opportunity for really the entire county to work on safety and traffic flow. If you had a recommendation for how the city can better determine where our safety needs are to present that case to the county or the committee or whoever, what would your recommendation be on how we can prepare to ensure that those priorities are,
Yeah, I think that safety action plan is gonna be an incredible, valuable plan that we can all utilize. And so our goal is to make these programs as
User friendly.
yeah, as user friendly. So everybody, we create a criteria that gets blessed, and we have mentioned the citizen oversight committee, and then also county council. This is the criteria to use, so everybody knows the rules of engagement, how we plan on programming those funds. And then between those, so it may be number of accidents or number of traffic or whatever those parameters get set as. And then using the available plans that we have available, we're also going to be seeking out some more information from DOT. They have a safety office and robust data. And as we get that, we can share that. So municipalities and other entities can submit that as this is what we would request to be considered.
okay. I just want to make sure anything that we can do to make sure that we're prepared and that you guys know what our priority needs are, we will do.
And a lot of like intersections already show up on LATS's long range plan.
Right.
So those are going to be things that you see as like, does it show up on this plan? Is it? So the more things that it's kind of like a grant application, but the more things that it hits, the higher that perceived project will rank.
Okay, perfect. Second question. I was not on council at the time, but my understanding for why the projects from the 2018 referendum have not been completed is because there were shortfalls on the financial end. Learning from that experience, what did you guys do different this time to ensure that we don't have the same shortfalls and that the projects captured, although some of them are not very well defined, like so mass transit can, as we discussed here, I mean, it can mean several different things. But what did you do to ensure this time that the estimated amounts are going to be able to fund those projects so that we don't end up having shortfalls on this referendum as well?
That's right. So first of all, the biggest thing that none of us sitting here, I mean, I can't predict it, Jerome Powell can't predict it. The interest rates and the black swan event in COVID. That was the majority of what hit 2018. So we have $190 million shortfall in 278. The initial price was $240 million and that was programmed. We've had a 70% increase national-wide in cost of construction. And so that pairs right in line with the $190 million shortfall. So on the future projects, the Triangle and SC 46, and similar to the 278, these are in the conceptual phase. We're not fully designed. So these are conceptual cost estimates, but even better, the Triangle and SC 46 are partner projects with Jasper County. So they have contributing funds as well. So we even, for those projects and even Rebo Road, when the cost went down or the timeline went down from 15-year to 10-year, we even upped some of the project values to ensure that we are offsetting for future unknowns, whether it's interest rates or whatever the case may be in cost escalation. And then the program projects, our intent there is not to start with $100 million. Our intent is to, whatever that $100 million is percentage wise, so roughly 10% of the program, that's how much would get allocated and obligated on a yearly basis. So if we bring in $70 million, 10% of that would be $7 million. That way we don't outspend. If we just spend what's on the map, what's on the page there, but we under collect, then we're in a world of hurt. But if we pace our planned funding with actual percentage-based collection, that way we're not over obligating what we intend to spend.
We wouldn't have to issue a bond either.
Yeah, so the last 2018, that question was on the referendum, can we issue bonds in addition? It got voted yes. We never actually used the bonds because the collection came in so much faster. We have that luxury in Beaufort County, just our collection is very robust. So it came in faster than the projects got implemented. Other than some of the smaller the program projects and maybe the municipal projects, the other projects will take time to develop. So we anticipate a similar scenario where the funding's probably going to come in faster than we can get the projects delivered. And then lastly, to your point, what have we learned is we are more prepared this year than we were in 2018 out of the gate. We already have plans in progress of some degree on the Triangle project, the conceptual charrette we've done on Rebo Road, SC 46 has plans in development. So they're a year or two ahead of where we were when we started in 2018.
And the 2018 funds that were not expended, you've collected, obviously, interest rates going up, you should have collected some nice interest on that as well.
Yes, so all of the interest that was captured by those funds sitting in our bank accounts, it pours back into the projects. Obviously, we have underfunded projects, so it will help close that gap in the underfunded projects.
Just to give you an example, Green Space has collected 59 million to date in a year. It comes in faster than you think it will.
Yeah.
That falls off in December or January?
December, end of this year, or $100 million. So it falls off on a quarter. So we'll get our next quarterly report at the end of September. So it's a month late in October. And DOR will say if you're at $98 million, it continues the whole next quarter. If it's at $101 million, it stops. And then, so the last quarter of the year, we'll hear from DOR whether it maintains through the end of the year or whether it stops early.
Anyone else?
Do you want to explain the oversight?
Yeah, the oversight committee, so just real quick, and then I know you guys have another agenda. Thank you for hearing us out. The oversight committee, so what that is basically to set up similar to what the school board has. They have a very robust program. And that citizen committee basically oversees the expenditures, the schedules. They have a green light, yellow light, red light. If you ever looked at their materials, whether this project's on pace or this project's overfunded, they'll have different light scenarios, and they'll let the masses and everyone know, all the residents know of the status of the program. So ours is 7 members, just like theirs. Our makeup will be 1 from each municipality, and then 3 from the county. And so if approved, we would work to get that stood up as fast as possible. We'll ask for y'all's appointment, and then that will be in line for the length and the duration of the program.
So if we come up with a list of projects, you would have to submit it with the oversight committee.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't
Put it in.
We haven't fully defined what the parameters and how that will work. Again, we're using the school district as our model and base. And so, more details to follow.
Because I think the municipality knows what we need more than the collective.
I don't disagree, and I think, the way the school district, they have their list of projects. That citizens committee is not telling them to do this project, this project, this project. They're overseeing the expenditure of the program and the schedule of the program and any materials that they think should be relevant and available for everyone to see. Those are the main factors that they're doing.
Thank you, Jared and Alice. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very informative.
Again, thank y'all for talking about it. This is exactly the information that needs to be out to the public.
Okay, next on the agenda is the record rotation fee schedule discussion. JJ?
Hi, good evening, council. If you'll remember back in April, you heard from myself and Chief Price and then many record professionals here in Beaufort regarding our record rotation ordinance language. Late last year, there was a complaint made to Chief McDormand at the time about some fees that were charged. And that caused a review of our record rotation policy. Chief McDormand worked with our city attorney to draft a model ordinance that referenced the South Carolina Highway Patrol's annual record fee schedule. That was the initial language that we brought forward to council on April 9th for review. At that date, council heard from many different record professionals and directed staff to meet with them to discuss their concerns about the reality of those numbers and the cost of living here in Beaufort. On May 2nd, we met with an entire room. We had the whole room here filled up. Myself, members of the police department, and the record professionals. They appointed Greg Felber, Transport, Towing and Recovery. He was here with us today. Yep, there we go. Sir, if you want to come up. As their representative, and he and I have emailed back and forth. And what I asked them to do at the end of that meeting was to prepare their version of a fee schedule, what they believe was reasonable, and provide that to us. Our recommendations to council are to choose one of 2 options. One is that original option we presented that adopts the Highway Patrol fee schedule as may be amended from time to time so as to be consistent with the state of South Carolina. Or 2, to adopt language that causes us to develop our own schedule. based on those requests, the records and that would be updated every 2 years. That process, I don't have everything lined out yet because we're waiting to hear from you tonight, but I imagine it would look something along the lines of developing an internal policy to bring stakeholders from the record community to the table, to meet with staff every 2 years to review possible living and what the state fees are, what other fees around us look like. And I think they would be amenable to that approach. The proposal that they provided us with, you have in your packet, and I apologize on the addendum. Yeah. On the addendum item, the highway patrol record fees, I attached the 2023 version. There's a slight difference in that for 2023, 2024, the South Carolina Highway Patrol upgraded their prices from a whopping $251 to $257. I will make sure to reflect that accordingly, but the numbers that the group provided to us was, a standard wrecker rotation Class A towing fee, $325, single fee. A daily storage rate of $55, which the storage rate under the highway patrol plan was $43 per day. Extreme cleanup or special operations, $125 an hour to be billed a half hourly rate. And that was trying to find the comparison on here. 154. 154 is what the highway patrol allows to charge. So they actually came down lower on that. Thank you. Got out for here. Administrative fee, notification and or court costs just when necessary. So if they have to proceed to court to collect, somebody's not got a vehicle, then times a $250 fee. A yard gate fee after the first trip during normal business hours of $75, and a yard gate fee after normal business hours and weekends of $100. That would be a single fee. The way they explained the yard gate fee after the first trip during normal business hours to me is that due to all of their insurance providers, they're not allowed to have anyone go back into their area unless they're escorted by an employee. So even during business hours, they are pulling employees to meet with people who then don't show up, or they show up 3 or 4 hours after their appointment. And they've had to take somebody who could be out collecting vehicles, doing other work for the company. And that pulls them away. Is that a correct explanation? So, Mr. Felber, unless I've left anything, if you have anything to add.
I think you're pretty thorough. I would just add that as an owner operator, my experience with the highway patrol has been a good experience, with the exception of in 2010, they punished a lot of us for a few bad choices of a few bad actors. I felt like that was the wrong thing to do. But unfortunately, if you're in the record business, you got to take highway patrol. That's about 70% of your income. Local municipalities is a good portion too, but highway patrol is what you pay your bills with. So it's kind of hard to tell highway patrol you're not the total one. I feel like it should be up more than it is. I feel like their inflation rate should have been a little bit more. At some point, I think we're probably gonna have to talk to highway patrol. But as far as Beaufort County, Beaufort City, Fort Roll goes, then y'all call me any time of the day. I do realize that there's a lot of young officers that are not seasoned, not the rookies, or maybe they haven't been, they just don't know yet. But when when they call you for a rotation at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you get up, you get dressed, you drive 15 minutes to town, get your tow truck. You get a speeding ticket because you're driving 6 miles over the speed limit. And you get to the call and they say, hey, we're gonna have to cancel you. They found a driver, or they did have insurance or something like that. I know it happens. I've been doing it a long time. I expect it to happen. But, those are things that nobody thinks about. I've spent hundreds of dollars worth of fuel for nothing in 18 years. And when it happens 2 or 3 or 4 times in a month, it just, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It's part of doing business, but our business is very expensive. When I started, I bought a tow truck. I was a career body man, worked with my dad. He did body work 50 years. So, hey, I'll buy a tow truck. Went and bought a tow truck, got insurance, got on with all local municipalities, Highway Patrol, PMO. My first tow truck, it cost me $2,600 for the year. That was general liability for the business, $100,000 garage keepers insurance, $75,000 on hook, $150,000, or excuse me, $300,000 comprehensive. In 2014, I decided to be professional and go LLC from a sole proprietorship. So when I spoke to my insurance agent, she said, oh, we're going to have to rewrite your policy. Okay, no problem. At the time, I had no incidents on my driving record, clean driving record. The increase, the new quote was $18,600. And needless to say, I shopped around and I was able to get a policy for about $12,500. But the increase is unbelievable to me. It takes a lot of profit. Insurance was higher, fuel's higher, parts and repairs were more expensive. Everything's more expensive. And 20 years ago, towing companies were charging $250 for record rotation. 20 years ago, they were charging $40 a day storage. So, and nobody wants to get the car towed. I don't want to get my car towed. But it happens. So I appreciate your time and consideration.
I have a question. Do y'all have a state association that you can lobby?
There are, but unfortunately, I hate to say it like this, but tow truck companies, record companies they won't stick together. They would, they do a lot better, but they don't.
And I think you probably look at it, JJ, but how do we as a region, I'm talking about the low country now, compare Beaufort Jasper area with, say, Charleston or Myrtle Beach or?
We're a little high here. We're quite a bit higher than a lot of them are. But the difference is,
Yeah, more.
the record company in Charleston gets called out 5 times a week. The record company in Beaufort might get called out 2 times a month.
To clarify, these fees would only be related to when they are called by the city to tow something. The police department calls for a traffic stop, stranded motors, whatnot. These would be the maximum fees allowed for that. So this doesn't control what any record engages with a private citizen.
You're ready to negotiate with a private citizen.
Well, we give the private citizens a lot better deal because there's a lot less liability. Your car breaks down, you need to go to the tire shop, we get it there and we're both go about our business. But when we got to tow it back to the tow yard, we've got to deal with the vehicle owner. Or maybe the person that was driving the car, it wasn't the vehicle owner, but still wants to come get the car and they can't because they're not the vehicle owner. They show up at your lot 5 or 6 times with a couple of their buddies. And you got to deal with the insurance company numerous times in some occasions. Just a lot more to it and it takes a lot of energy.
So these fees, you mentioned the state highway patrol. So if the state highway patrol stops someone within the city limits.
Yes, sir. So I adhere to their policy. Yes, sir.
But it only, what we're talking about, JJ, only applies in one of our police officers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
So for me, I was looking at this, you guys just submitted for, the Class A towing fee. And I'm not sure why you came in underneath the special operations, that the state has. So you came in at 125, they're 150. But personally, I would support what's been presented by the tow truck community. Obviously, they know their business more than any of us do. So I would support the 325. With the daily storage, I would probably come down to 50 so that my Class A and Class B were both 50. I don't know what your thoughts would be as a community on that. I hope that that wouldn't hurt too much, but it would be basically storage per day, $50 for Class A, 50 for Class B, and then 66 for Class C wrecker. But I would support the 325, $50 storage fee, and then the cleanup. Would you keep your number the same at 125, knowing that the state's is 150?
My personal opinion, anybody who can chime in is welcome to, but my personal opinion is Beaufort City is a lot smaller than the rural areas of Beaufort County. And my personal experience has been the collisions and the incidents that happen in the city usually aren't as traumatic as some of the higher speed roads. Don't get me wrong, I pulled some stuff out of the marsh in Beaufort City. Terrible, but 9 times out of 10, you got a fender bender vehicle accident in Beaufort City. There's minimal cleanup. Usually, if I clean up a little bit of glass and some plastic that broke off the car, I don't add in cleanup fees. Cleanup fees is if I'm putting 3 or 4 cans away, or if I've got to recover a vehicle out of the marsh or out of the woods or overturn a vehicle and clean up the mess, then yes, that special operations fee is going to be added. But as far as general cleanup, and most police municipalities, counties, statewide, they expect you to clean the roadway of a minor vehicle accident, not charge for that, because it doesn't take long and it's part of the tow. But if there are extenuating circumstances, I mean, if it was a 4-car pileup and there's a half a pickup truckload of debris that you got to pick up, then yeah, you need to get a little labor.
Right. I can go either way on that one, whether it's 150 or 125. But yeah, that's just me. Any concerns with the administrative or yard fees? Not the yard fees. And again, even with the administration fee being 250. I don't have a tow truck business, so it's hard, I don't think that you guys would have inflated the numbers that you gave us. So you're giving us the numbers that you need in order to make your business work. I did have a question in regards to the normal hours. Who would define that? How would we define normal hours?
By most police regulations, normal business hours are from 8 or 8:30 to 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Anywhere in that time.
I would think that would be clearly defined.
Yes.
So somewhere where it
It
wasn't
is.
just normal
Between
business hours.
municipalities. Normally it's 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30.
8:30 to 5 for high school. Okay. I don't have any issues with.
And there again, you get done with the day, you go home. Some live close, some live far out. You eat dinner with your family, somebody calls you, say, I need to pick up my vehicle. Okay, I'm gonna have to charge you, it's after hours, or you can pick it up tomorrow. Well, that'll be another day's storage.
I
It
guess
will, but it'll be less
I
than
guess
for
the
me to come
state
back down.
the state doesn't have anything for the gate fees or the administration fees. I didn't see it on here.
The state does not allow any other fees than what's on their fee schedule at all. Period. There again, just to bring you back up to speed, in 2009, Highway Patrol had so many record complaints. I don't know that it was completely statewide, but it was a lot. That they chose to bring everybody and every troop in South Carolina together and say, if you want to tow for us in 2010, you're gonna sign this paper. Here's what we're gonna do. And we went at that point from $250 to $165. Labor at that point in time was $75, if I'm correct. I think it was brought down to $50. Everybody was charging $40 a day storage. They knocked us down to $24 a day storage. And it said no other fees may be charged. And every year since 2014, or excuse me, since 2010, those fees have come up $3 or $4 every year. And now here we are, 2024, 14 years later, we're charging what we were 20 years ago.
I can tell you, Councilman Scolletti, that my experience with records in the upstate and western North Carolina was that gate fees were a pretty standard practice. I know they're recognized about every fee schedule I've seen in North Carolina, but again, I know that's.
Right, nope, I appreciate it. And then the administration fee, so notification and or court cost, so $250 when necessary. But maybe just a little bit more detail on when it's necessary was.
So if you, to keep up with state law, you have to get vehicle owner information within a certain, so many days after the tow. And then after you receive that information, you've got so many days to send a certified letter to vehicle owner and or the lien holder. It takes some time to fill those letters out and get to the post office, get those things sent off. After 35 days, if they've not come for the car, you got to file an abandoned vehicle inquiry with DMV. And that costs a little bit of money. When you get the correspondence back from DMV, whether it takes 2 weeks or 2 months, at that point, you can go to the magistrate's office, file for public sale. You got to fill out the application for magistrate's court, and you take it down to magistrate's court, $37 per car. Then you're gonna go to the hearing the following month. And then a month from then, if nobody picks it up, the judge will come out and do the public sale. So you've got quite a bit of time invested in the paperwork, going to court, waiting for the judge. The old joke was, hey, we towed a car for $250. We don't get paid on it. We spent $250, so we can take it to the junkyard for $250.
I emotionally would support that. Makes sense to me.
Quick question. I believe you told us last time, but how do our fees compare with municipalities close to us like Fort Royal, Bluffton?
I think that I'm not that familiar with all of them. I don't know that Fort Royal has ever had a fee schedule. I think Fort Royal takes it, complaints if they come. I've been on Fort Royal's record rotation list for 17 years and I've never seen any fees on their rules and regulations. And as far as Bluffton goes, I'm pretty sure Bluffton is got theirs down pretty low. There's a couple of record companies in Bluffton that I'm surprised still tow for Bluffton.
Should be great. Yes, Fort Royal is $250 and $40 a day.
Yeah, are they?
Yes.
Okay.
No fees for nothing. No
Yeah.
cleanup.
We surveyed,
Remember it being on there and I forgot.
yeah, we surveyed across the state. We received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 responses. Those responses ranged anywhere from $160 to $257 under the matching the highway patrol ordinance, and then all of the other various fees. Some had storage fees, some ordinances had gate fees, but they were all over the place. It really wasn't a good way to aggregate that.
Okay, thank you.
Looking for direction from council as far as what you would like us to bring back to you. If we went with the option 2 of the developing our own fee schedule, again, yeah, I believe it would look something along the lines of fee schedule that's adjusted every 2 years, and then a model of internal policy that would be administered by the city manager's office to standardize that process. But it would look something like what we just engaged with the company, surveying surrounding counties, looking at the highway patrol fee schedule, bringing the representatives from the record industry in, speaking with them. And then we would present those to council with our standard fee schedules and the budget. The other option is adopting the highway patrol fee schedule.
Like the first could be okay. I like the first. Then
Having our own fee schedule. Giving Tommy a found vote during the thing with the general guidance. Yeah, so that's the way we want to proceed. We'll work on that and we're something back to you. Again, there'll be a first and a second reading of the ordinance updates and the other opportunities for public comment. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
All right, thank you, John.
Other members of the committee? Okay, moving on down, the food truck traffic ordinance, Chief Wright. Yeah.
Mayor, council, city manager, assistant city manager.
And Tony.
And Tony, I was gonna say that, but. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Tonight we have for your consideration a through truck traffic ordinance. We have received some complaints and we've received some concerns at the PD about big trucks not using the through truck traffic routes that's set up down 21. And so that caused us great concern. Next one. So again, we received several complaints, and it's not just complaints, it's concerns. And they're concerned about citizen safety as we are. They're concerned about environmental factors. They're concerned about infrastructure. They're really concerned about, you know, the tree foliage and the overhangs. Where are they going to turn around? Noise pollution, traffic congestion. We're concerned about all those things too, because we want to make a safe environment for the citizens of Beaufort. We want to keep downtown beautiful for many of the residents that live there and many of our visitors that come in. We're also, sorry about that.
I was trying to read you.
We are also concerned about, you know, historic infrastructure that we have, such as the Woods Bridge. We'll talk about that as well. Thank you. So currently what we do to enforce the traffic is we, you know, adherence to the signs that are already posted through truck route traffic. We don't have anything specifically that addresses the through truck traffic. We just have traffic control devices, and that's what the officers generally use. And as you can see at the bottom, and you know, they cite them for this, the fine is $237.50, or is assigned by our municipal judge. It is a municipal charge. We wanted to make something more specific for your consideration to that route specifically. Go ahead. And so our recommended restriction areas are, as you can see, at Foundry Street, Carteret, Sea Island Parkway, between SC 281 Rebar Road and US 21 Ladies Island Drive, and it includes the Woods Memorial Bridge. Also, Road South 6 Bay Street between SC 281, US Highway 21, Business Carteret Street, and other streets as designated by South Carolina Department of Transportation signage. Part of our, as you'll see at the end, part of our assignment and our research was to look and see, well, did we need more signs? What were the trucks missing? Were they missing them? So this is the through truck traffic restricted area. As you can see, it encompasses all of downtown. Our research also yielded this. If you only use Google Maps, it does not show restricted through truck traffic. Basically, big trucks have to subscribe to navigation software to get those through truck traffic routes. We also have contacted all the major businesses in the area, particularly like, you know, Gray's Lumber, Harris Teeter, a lot of the big box stores and chain stores, to ensure that they knew we had a through truck traffic route and we would appreciate their adherence to that. We spent many afternoons doing enforcement off the bridge, giving warnings to people just to make sure they knew. That way they could let all their drivers know, because it is the driver who receives the ticket. Let all the other drivers know, we're going to start enforcing this. These are your warnings. We're looking to get a through truck traffic ordinance in our ordinances, so please be aware of this. just to make sure. We met with a couple of them several times. We emailed, and they have distribution centers, so they emailed all their drivers. So here is the current established DOT truck route. And as you can see it right there, easy to go down 21, Business 21 to get to Ladies Island, that way. Okay. So proposed restrictions on trucks. It would be medium and heavy trucks, so dump trucks, tractor trailers that can't operate in designated areas unless they have specific business purposes. Make no mistake, we support, as you all do, the businesses in the area, and loading and unloading of those goods and services can continue just like this. Recommended exemptions, emergency vehicles and local government vehicles. Of course, we want to get them to the quickest route. That's great. And trucks detoured by local authorities or traffic control devices in case we had an accident or an incident, which would require rerouting. Personal pickup trucks, passenger vans, and buses will not be affected by this as well. We worked with the city attorney to create the ordinance language. So the recommended penalties for this, and it'll be decided by the municipal judge, of course, fine up to $500 or imprisonment up to 30, which is standard. We did research across the state, any through truck traffic in the state, that was generally what they had. So I wanted to show you the existing through truck traffic signs, just so you knew, well, did we have enough? Are they not seeing them? Are they just ignoring them? I'm certain they're not. Certain not seeing it, or perhaps their navigation didn't take them that way. Go ahead, sir. So Boundary Street near Carolina Cove, and it clearly says truck notice, it's restricted, no through truck traffic, 3 axles or more, please use US 281. Boundary Street and Marsh Drive, same, and the arrows there, looks great. Rebar Road and Bay Street, there's the truck route. You guys are all probably familiar. I don't know if you look at the signs when you go by, but these are them. Go ahead. Rebar Road near Beaufort Memorial Hospital, same. Ladies Island Drive, Meridian Road. So it was clearly marked, so no recommendations to change signage. We talked to SCDOT, they had no interest. They said it was clearly marked as well. We thoroughly agree with this. Easy to see, very visible, meet standard sign requirements. So we wanted to talk about the Woods Memorial Drive, Woods Memorial Bridge. As you know, it was designated as a historic bridge. We have had 9 reported malfunctions in 2024, and trucks are required to have less than 3 axles, and the weight limit is 40,000 pounds. We talked to one of their engineers who absolutely supported this ordinance. I have his name here if you need it. And what he said was, over time, as you can imagine, heavy trucks do damage the historic bridge. So do you have any questions? So all we're simply asking for is an ordinance that specifically is designated for the through truck traffic route.
How do we get Google on the phone?
So I tried that. And there are a lot of forums that talk about that specific thing, and they will not change it no matter what. You have to have the specific navigation software that a lot of trucking companies actually have, but Google Maps won't change. We did a lot of research into this. We even called them.
I think a good PR campaign on this new ordinance would be good, because a lot of people, and myself included, I saw a big old truck going over the bridge, and I didn't realize it was only a 2-axle truck and not a 3-axle, but it was a big truck.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get calls from people saying, so-and-so is delivering stuff over here and all that. So I think if they understand, it's gotta be like a 3-axle semi type truck. You won't get as many calls.
I'll tell you, when our community response team, as you all know, was assigned to this, and part of their job is traffic enforcement, as they were assigned to this, there were no shortage of folks that they pulled over for it. No shortage of warnings given within that short time frame. What I'm telling you is I'm very concerned about the safety of the citizens that live and work, go downtown.
Thank you for putting this together.
Any questions? Please, if you have further, let me know.
Again, Paul Trev, 16 Bladen Street. I have a constructive comment. It's slightly off subject, but this is a work session, and I think this is important, if I may. So on Blaine Street, we've had a situation at the Black Chamber where they have leased space to a tenant that's a subcontractor for Hargrave Telephone, strictly a commercial vehicle. That's a good thing. However, the chamber is requiring these strictly commercial vehicles under 2.5 tons to park directly on Blaine Street rather than on the chamber's property. And I would like to suggest that is not in the spirit of, or the intent of the ordinance. And there's one simple word change. This is municipal ordinance section 8-2008. And there's a one word change that I would ask council to consider, please, which is to change the word or to the word and. And what I'm going to do is, if I may, I'll give JJ a red line of this and ask council to please consider that change, the purpose of which would be to have these businesses that lease space or operate strictly commercial vehicles, that they should have those directly on their lot. Thank you.
Make it available for passenger parking.
Correct.
Please.
This is under the Historic Use of Foundation. Very well done. Thank you. The question that I have, I think it's something that we've run into a lot within the downtown area, with large trucks using Bay Street when they shouldn't be using Bay Street. You know that, for sure. So the route is critical, but also the size of the vehicles. And in your research, I would suggest that you look at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, Charlestown, towns where they have put in restrictions that only smaller trucks can come in there. Not 3-axle, not 2-axle, but smaller trucks like what you see happen with the delivery trucks from FedEx and those kind of trucks. A lot of these are not allowed to come into historic downtown areas, specifically for the reasons that you stated, or they're required to stop at a different location and have another way for the materials to be delivered. We don't want to impede anybody's deliveries at their stores, but if there was a way to do some research and find out about it and make a recommendation to the trucking companies that they not bring those larger vehicles into our downtown area, I think that would be a great help. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I like it. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have a discussion item on ordinance to amend the code of ordinance of the city of South Carolina to add the new section 4-1002, adopting regulations for the combined use utility poles for electric and communication wires in the city of Beaufort, South Carolina. JJ, you're up.
So, good evening, council. This process predates my time with the city, so this has been going on for at least a year now that I'm aware of. There's been discussion with Dominion Energy as they come in and upgrade their poles. There's been issues with other utilities not wanting to relocate their transmission lines or their electrical lines or signal lines to the new poles. And there's not been any mechanism in place to require that. So the final product has been, we have throughout the city various places where you have 2 or 3 poles in the same vicinity holding up different types of wires because the pole provider did not have a mechanism for making them remove their pole from their wires or co-locate their wires. City attorney has worked with Dominion Energy's attorney. This proposed ordinance in front of you today mirrors the city of Charleston and for several other municipalities that were looking at the same thing. And it requires that anytime a new pole is placed by a utility provider, that the other utility providers that use that original pole have 90 days to move their wires over. Practically speaking, this would really fall to Dominion to be on top of, they're the primary pole owners here in the city. So if this went into place, it would be their responsibility to go around, make all the notifications, provide that information to the city. And if compliance is not made within 90 days, then the city could take action for a violation of this ordinance. Council have any questions?
First question is, do we go back and notify the utility companies that have lines on the pole but haven't moved them? Or does this take effect and only notify utility companies moving forward?
My understanding is because Dominion would be the owner of both poles, it would fall on them to make those notifications and make requests, but they can go back to the request once this becomes active ordinance. They can go back, do that inventory, provide the notice. That's the reason you have the 90-day period.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But I would almost recommend that in that case, we introduce a 6-month period after the enactment of the ordinance as a grace period for those utilities to move those utilities to the new larger pole. And then after that, it would be the 90 days.
That's a good idea. I didn't think about that, but that's where I was going next with it.
It would definitely be a public information campaign targeted at all of our utility providers, franchisees in the city.
Okay. And then it probably is, I did not look, but are the penalties for not complying with this already built into our code? Or would we need to add an additional penalty to cover this?
Then your city attorney advised that it would fall back on the standard.
Okay.
Section.
Yeah, it seems that I remember some time ago, during one of the Dominion session. There was concern about, so we have the lines moved to the new pole, how do we get rid of the old poles?
Dominion takes them.
It would.
Well, I don't know, we've had this discussion before, pretty heated discussions, so we brought Dominion in. And citizens had a chance to directly address their concerns, but there was a concern that they were putting in these gigantic pole, metal poles. But the other wooden poles were still there, which became quite unsightly for someone staring out there when they're at it all.
2021, we had that discussion.
Yeah, so that's still not clear.
The way I've always seen this done is both of those poles would belong to the responsibility.
It was Dominion who came to us to ask us to do this ordinance because they want to get rid of their old poles. They don't like having old poles right next to them. So I think if we enact this and then we'll see a pole standing there, nothing connected to it for a while, I won't hesitate to knock on the door there and say,
It also creates a line.
Well, that's good to know, it's good to know, because the complaint back then was the old poles weren't being removed, so that's good.
JJ, it's not just a Dominion pole, there's also two poles right there, one from the other utilities, being the cable, or are they gonna have to move theirs onto that pole too? We get rid of both poles?
If they are existing poles that belong to separate utility providers, this would not fix that.
Okay, because there's always two poles right there next to each other, one's Dominion, one's the other utilities, and I didn't know whether or not Dominion might be able to make room for those on their pole.
They could request it, you just wouldn't be able to force it under this ordinance.
Okay, but we'd be able to, under a different ordinance, come up with something to do it, because, those big poles are so unsightly, and then you got two poles right next to it. If we can get both of those other poles out of there, at least it gives a little more, it's still unsightly, but at least it's not as bad. Because there's always two of them right there next to each other, the Dominion and the other utilities. And I'd like to see both of them gone.
I can ask the city attorney.
Okay, thank you.
I can't advise here
Right.
in South Carolina, very different. Right.
Okay. If there's a way to do it, because I talked to Dominion about it before, and they said that, they can't force those other utilities to go on there. There's room for them, but they can't make them go on. So I didn't know if we could.
You ever dealt with that? So I think something that might be clear is there's a difference between transmission lines and service lines. And so the big unsightly poles, that are metal, are your transmission lines. So your service lines aren't gonna be connected to that. So when Dominion comes in and they put in their new pole, they put out an offer to move because the utilities, say like the cable companies and all that, they actually get an easement and attach to Dominion's pole. Well, Dominion sends it to them and they never move it, so Dominion abandons the old pole and leaves those utilities on it, and they have no way of forcing them to that, and I think that's what this is trying to do. And so those utilities would get moved to the new Dominion pole and Dominion would remove the old one, so that's my understanding.
You go along Depot Road.
There's always, two poles next to the big one, and one's Dominion. I didn't know if the other one was theirs or whose.
Usually it's Dominion's new pole, and then, sometimes I would say that when they move to the new pole, those cable companies and all that stay behind. And so I know that's the issue we ran into when we were in the core district, looking at the poles down there. I'd have to look out at Mossy Oaks and see
You
the
just look,
difference.
you'll see two poles everywhere, right down there. Everywhere there's two poles. Right outside my door, there's
Yeah.
two poles. Luckily, I don't have one of those big ones. It might get mad at me and put my hand now that I'm talking about it.
Very few places that I've seen the cable companies or utility companies outside of Dominion own the pole. So usually it's always Dominion's pole.
There are two of them everywhere.
Please.
Might be just a cautionary statement. I brought it up before, about the huge poles along Green Street in the historic district, the ones that were put in 2006 or right around that time. And are just a complete blight, along Green Street. And, I hope that we're not, or this would not encourage those type of big metal, large poles to happen throughout the community, so.
There's gonna be someone that, Burton the Frogmore.
Yeah.
Those transmission lines.
Well, I think, let's keep them out of the historic district, it's already happened once. And I'm sure federal dollars were spent on those being put in by SCNG back in 2006. And that could have been and should have been a section 106 application because they were impacting a historic district, a national landmark district. So just cautionary, I don't know if there's something that can be added to that ordinance that prevents them from doing such a thing in the historic district. Thank you.
I think Cynthia was first, Ms. Farrelly, and then we'll get you.
Cynthia Jenkins. Yeah, Lisa's right. They violated federal law when those huge metal poles went in the National Landmark District. It should have gone through 106. It should have gone through the review board. Y'all do have the power to adopt a special ordinance because it's a National Landmark District and to work with utility companies. Georgia Power and Southern Company in particular has worked amazingly with National Register listed districts in Georgia. And in fact, every Main Street district in the state of Georgia was offered for them to put power lines underground in the historic district. So, not only is that a eyesore, but it's also a major hurricane preparedness kind of thing. So that was done a long time ago, but I think there are plenty of cities in the state of South Carolina that would probably work with us to make it a statewide kind of a concern. And that's your power.
Farrelly?
Yes, I didn't have any notes on this because I did have a question in terms of whether or not this would impact the city's goal of burying utilities whenever possible, but since it didn't address it, I didn't address it. So I'm glad it's come up. And also, I was surprised, I had questions come up during this discussion. When I first moved into my house, which is right near the hospital off of Allison, there were wires crisscrossing my lawn and up this way and wires hanging that were like just cut. And I called because I don't know if these are live wires or not or what. And I discovered that a lot of these minor utilities, cables and whatever, they will just come out and run another wire every time somebody wants something, but then they don't ever remove their wires. So I think that should be maybe incorporated as a part of this, not realizing that there were separate poles. I mean, it would be ideal if there was one pole and that was it. So I thought that was a great idea, but if there are gonna be poles remaining as well, I mean, all those old wires, they gotta be taken away when they're.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, JJ. Our last discussion item we have is green space application for domestic properties. Kurt, please. You're up.
We'll get the opportunity to present a non-politically sensitive item very often, so I'm relish this opportunity.
You don't know that.
I don't think anybody's, I don't think. But this is for a green space application and fee simple, so property itself. Over behind the Publix in Ladies Island. So it was denied by the county's green space program primarily because they need a recommendation. And so there's a city council recommendation letter in here for you to consider. That'll be forwarded to the county, but again, the property is actually two separate properties. It's right next to that bar and grill. Rosie's. Yes, and it's on T4N, and it's the future land use is kind of very dense, it's urban, kind of like a mixed use district. So I think it's an opportunity, you know, I guess as you can see in the packet, it meets all of the conditions to be part of the green space program. And that means it'd be protected essentially. And I think in the application, you can kind of see that we think it's a really good thing because the great thing about Beaufort is one of the few places where you can see trees and vegetation preserved with very developed areas. So this would not only give stormwater, you know, a lot of break, if you will, but you know, keeps all that natural vegetation right next to it.
Is this our first one?
It is.
What does our plan show for this parcel area? I thought I showed what I saw development on it.
Yeah, it shows it is, it's in here somewhere. It's a urban center, which is retail, apartments, office, mixed use.
So council, that's why I asked her to bring this to you, because if this request was compatible with your long-term planning documents, then I would have simply signed my letter as the city manager stating that. That would have been the letter of support, but because it is somewhat in conflict with those documents, though professionally, I think it's a good idea to preserve the space. Because it's in conflict with those documents, I did not want to sign any letter. That has to come to you. So I would suggest that if you do want to support this green space application, and my recommendation is that you do, then we formalize that through a resolution and attach this letter to it in a formal manner. So you're on record that we realize, because I think the county will look for that, right? One of the things that the county green space program will do is it will also look at our see if our recommendation is compatible with their documents. If it's not, they might want to know why. And so we just want to explain that up front and be very formal with our recommendation.
Yeah. I'm in favor of it with all the overdevelopment in that area, and it does, like you say, give it a break right there. I very much am in favor of it going forward.
I agree. I have two questions. So first one is, it looks like there was a deadline for, I can't find it now, August 20th. So if that's the deadline, would this mean that after we submit the letter of approval, would they just file in the next run?
That's what I understand.
Yes, right now they have an application on file, but the application is incomplete. And it needs the city's recommendation or non-recommendation to be a complete package. It did not get marked complete within the deadline that you just spoke of. So it gets moved to the next quarter's consideration.
Okay, and then maybe this is already built into the green space process. And I think it came up at the meeting last night, but what were to happen in the case that we support this being sold to green space, but for some reason the appraisal misses the assessed value? There's a delta. Would that matter to the city at all?
County program.
Green space money will be used for the appraisal. And, and then it has to be willing landowner, of course. And then that is part of the package that will go to green space for approval or not, and then go forward to full county council.
Okay. So I
That was
guess it-
Senator Davis's opinion last night, that is, as a committee, and I serve on that committee, we have always recommended that we not pay more than the appraised value that is done by the Green Space Committee. Attorneys recommended appraisal company.
Okay, so then I guess if it came in underneath the 998 assessed value, then the property owner could determine if they wanted to sell it for less, and it really wouldn't affect the municipality at all. Right, okay. And
Our county ordinance says we can't offer more than appraised value.
Right.
I don't say so. Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do to get ahead of this next time, so that maybe if the applicant comes and gets approval first, then we can give the approval and then they can apply, so that it doesn't get denied and run the risk of them not being willing the next time?
I think they went to the county first.
Right.
The applicants follow.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I guess, is there anything that we can do to maybe help educate, to let people know that if that's the case, then you come to the city first, get a letter of approval, and then go to the county, so that you don't have to go to the county, get denied, and then come to us.
I think we can talk to, run that program for the communities. Try to inform them that maybe that's just.
In the form, on the form that they fill out, it says, there's a check mark, do you have an endorsement from the city? That's what they fill out, and we've had some from another location that the town declined to endorse it.
I guess it asks, and it's probably in here, but it asks if they have an endorsement,
To
But-
include it.
okay, to include it. I guess if it's required, then it would maybe, if it was worded as that it is required, so that they know they don't check it, and then, I guess they would know they have to come to the city first. Get approval.
Real quick, page 87, one of parcels, there's a unique feature, I'm not sure what that is.
What? Where?
Page 87 on the map here. It's got blue around it. I don't know what that is, it's a giant turtle shell.
Oh.
87? 87.
87?
57, yeah, that's like a turtle.
57, the piece of property?
67.
Yeah, 67, are you looking at? Right here.
The blue. Oh, the piece of property?
Blue, little bit, I can't tell you what that is.
What's this?
Those are the two parcels.
Yeah, I know. I'm just curious what that was.
Trees.
Yeah, those trees.
Trees.
And if you drive by it right now, it's mostly cleared.
Yep.
They cleared that property, yes. They're good, but
It's cleaned up
cleaned up,
significantly.
all the underbrush gone.
Oh, okay. Okay, anything else? Kurt? Okay, with that, we'll adjourn this meeting, and we have a regular council meeting ahead at 7 o'clock upstairs.
Fresh, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Well, that's because